Harassment. Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on the Morning Majority. And we are very lucky to have Lis Wiehl with us, Fox News legal analyst and author. She's also a fellow warrior on the O'Reilly Factor. I like to call us warriors. How's it going, Lis?
It's going great, Mary Catherine. I don't have any power, but other than that, everything's good.
Oh, man.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this Herman Cain stuff. First of all,
right.
Sexual harassment, the term sort of it was its heyday in the 90s. What is the actual legal definition? Is there a working definition?
Well, it depends on your environment. If you're in the work environment, which is what we're talking about here, there has to be a hostile work environment. I mean, that's really the key to it. Does a person, a subjective person, feel like they're in a hostile work environment, whether it's a man or a woman? And it has to be with somebody that, usually it is anyway, with somebody that has a position of power over them and can create that hostile work environment. And then it comes very, very case-specific as to what constitutes sexual harassment. And that's very, very fact-specific, and courts, look at every fact, every scenario differently to determine whether or not there was real sexual harassment.
Do you think it's likely that Cain did not know the details of this settlement when it happened?
It's hard to say because we don't know. Apparently this is all, happening very quickly, so we're all kind of trying to catch up with the story here. But from what we're hearing most lately is that it was a general counsel that was dealing with the complaint or complaints. And whether or not the general counsel, we just don't know. I mean, would the general counsel have told Mr. Cain that this was going on? You would think so, but my understanding is that he's saying now, no, it never rose to the level where it actually got to my desk, where I even heard about it. I didn't even know that this was going on until after the fact.
All right, Lis, I got a question for you here. Imagine for a moment that you are a lawyer representing one of these women.
Right.
We don't know a lot about the facts of this case, but we do know from the Politico story that we're talking about a settlement that was 5 figures. So that's between $10,000 and $99,000.
Right, that's what's reported. Right.
So if you're a lawyer representing a client, and that client and you believe that client has a serious and valid and egregious sexual harassment complaint against the head of a big money trade association in the nation's capital, do you settle for 5 figures?
Well, I hate to sound like a greedy lawyer, but no. Not if I'm representing the woman, and not if it is, real horrendous, and I can't even, describe what that would be. I mean, but if there's a sexual assault, for example, or just an ongoing perpetration of, really horrible stuff.
So does the fact that apparently this was settled for 5 figures, does that suggest to you something about the merits of the claim?
It can, yeah. It could also suggest, because we don't know. It could suggest the merits of the claim. It could also suggest the strength of my client. I'm playing the role of the client for the woman here. If she is somebody who does not want to come forward, for example, if she's begging me, look, I just want to know that I was right, get a little bit of money and get out of here. That's all I want, lawyer. Then you have to put your client's best interest ahead. So it could be the situation, and I hate to be obfuscating, but, I really have to.
But generally, if there was a valid claim and you wanted to take this thing all the way and you wanted to fight it, how much money are you potentially talking about?
Oh, I mean, if it's a valid claim that, involves real sexual harassment over an extended period of time with a strong witness, you could be talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
All right. I think that's exactly what I said earlier. I think you're right.
We're talking with Lis Wiehl, a Fox News legal analyst. All right, let me ask you a different way from Brian's question, and that is, how are these things typically handled? I don't know how often this takes place in corporate America, but typically, how would it be handled? Do they say, all right, we'll have some kind of agreement, a confidential agreement, and
right.
we'll pay you to leave? I mean, is that typically how these things work out?
There is no typical scenario. It depends, again, and if there is more than one victim, and we're understanding that there are at least 2 victims or alleged victims, then sometimes people band together. Even a lawyer will take, several clients at once. Sometimes it's brought actually as a filed complaint in a court of law, and that then, that's public at that point. Many times, though, you're right. It's sort of sealed within the company. The person is paid something, maybe a severance package, something like that, and then it's over. What happened apparently in this case or these cases is that the women, not Cain and not the organization, but the women signed a confidentiality agreement. That's not unusual. It sounds a little, torrid, but it's not unusual. I mean, if you're a company, I'll change my hats now. If I'm representing the company and I want this to go away, basically, then I'm going to make sure I have a confidentiality agreement. It would be foolish of me not to.
Right. All right. So what about Herman Cain? Is he allowed to talk about that? I mean, you said they signed it. Can he talk about what was, what they settled on? Is he breaking any rules by actually giving some details about what he's accused of doing?
I haven't seen the agreement, so I can't tell you for sure.
Okay.
Generally, those confidentiality agreements are very one-sided. It's the side that's getting the money, basically, that signs off on the confidentiality agreement. But I haven't seen the actual agreement. It's possible that, both sides signed off on it, and therefore, he has to be very careful about what he says. But generally, in a general sense, it's usually the party getting the money.
All right. I'm going to go back to something you said earlier. I find this hard to believe that you have a general counsel who makes this decision to, make a deal, however you want to call it, with these women about a sexual harassment case that involves the head of the trade organization. That general counsel has to at least acknowledge that there's something going on here and that they made a deal with the CEO of the trade association. I mean, to me, that the Herman Cain didn't know about this seems kind of crazy. Am I wrong about that?
I know, but then we also have Eric Holder saying you didn't know about Fast and Furious when you've got,
Yeah, and I had a tough time believing that, too.
Right, so you got to just, hold, wait, wait and see what comes out, but... I
mean, I can understand if some guy in accounting that it doesn't go to Herman Cain's desk, but the fact that it involves Herman Cain.
Right.
Right. And what does surprise me if he didn't know about it, and this would be the general counsel's fault, is that forget about his running for president, 15 years later or whatever, but right at that moment, he is a very powerful person in that position. You would think that he would know about it, have been told about it for no other reason but PR for the company, that this could, come out. We have to have our game plan and our faces painted and ready to go, and we have to know what we're going to say as a company. And, wholly apart from his then running for president all these many years later.
Well, real quick, if these women in question signed the confidentiality agreement, there's been a lot of discussion, would they come forward and put their names to this story and be named sources? What would they be risking in doing that legally?
Well, I'm assuming in a confidentiality agreement, for there to be any teeth to it, there's got to be a provision that if you come forward, if you violate this confidentiality agreement, not only will you lose the money that we gave you, so they'd have to pay that back, right? Which, we don't think it's a whole lot. Well, we don't know. I mean, $99,000 is a lot of money. I'm sorry. But they'd have to pay that back, and usually a confidentiality agreement also includes a clause that then the company or the other party would have a right to come after and sue you for any damages, a breach of contract damages. So they could be looking at, substantial amount of money, at least potentially.
All right, Lis. Good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for your time, especially without having power on. And I hope you get the lights back on soon.
All right. Thanks,
Lis.